let's go over excretion in human beings. So when we get to eat food and we have already absorbed the necessary nutrients from that food, let's say we have already absorbed the glucose and already absorbed the proteins. So what has remained has to be taken away from the body. And so that is where excretion gets to come in. So excretion is a removal of metabolic waste. So we are saying metabolic waste because this comes after metabolism. So metabolism can either be the buildup of substances or the breakdown of substances. Let's say when we want to build proteins, you are going to have amino acids which come together for you to build a protein. For example, you have got the amino acid glycine, tryptophan, you have got leucine. There are a lot of amino acids. Now, what I just want us to know is that when you want to form a protein, you are going to have amino acids. And so that is the anabolism because you are building up. There are some other bigger molecules that you have to break down, and that is going to be called catabolism. So apart from building of proteins from amino acids, you also have making glycogen. So glycogen, this is the form in which glucose is stored in animal cells. So it is stored, the glucose is going to be stored in glycogen. If you talk about the plant cells, for them they store in another form. So this is specifically for animals. Plants store glucose in form of starch. So apart from that, when you're talking about anabolism, which is the build up of substances, we also have photosynthesis. So we're going to have oxygen as one of those substances that you are going to get to use to be able to make to be able to make glucose during photosynthesis. You also have carbon dioxide like that. So this is the making up of a different substance from smaller ones. When you're talking about catabolism, a breakdown of a substance, for example, when you're talking about respiration, we're going to break down glucose to get to form different substances such as oxygen. Okay, so we are also going to have actually what I mentioned when I talked about the photosynthesis. So during photosynthesis, you have got first glucose. Let me just use G. So we can see that for respiration, you have got cell respiration with carbon dioxide and water. So in respiration, you are using actually carbon dioxide and water. Now, during photosynthesis, you are going to have glucose and oxygen. Sorry, this is not during glucose. Not during photosynthesis. This one I'm writing here is respiration. So when you get to react to glucose and oxygen, you are going to be able to break down this glucose. And so what are you going to form? You are going to form carbon dioxide. Apart from carbon dioxide, what other product can you think we are going to form? We're also going to form water. Okay, apart from water, in respiration, what other product do we have? So apart from that, in respiration, we also have energy as a product. Okay, so I'm going to say plus energy. So this I've written here is basically respiration. So if I get to reverse this process, carbon dioxide plus water plus energy to give us glucose and oxygen, this is now what we call as photosynthesis. So we also have, when you break down amino acids in the liver, okay, you are going to have at the end of it all waste products like urea. So that is also catabolism. Also the breakdown of hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is what gets to transport blood. So if you break down hemoglobin in the liver using bile pigments, that is also catabolism. Okay, so waste products have to be removed because they are harmful. For example, you're talking about after you break down amino acids, you have formed urea. Urea is not a very good substance to the body. Just like we know also carbon dioxide is not a good substance to the body. So all these have to be removed because they are harmful. Alright, so that is going to be using this process. So this table is showing us the organ that is going to remove substances and what has been removed and how they are secreted. So when you're talking about the lungs, lungs are concerned with breathing, I mean with the exchange of gases. So in the lungs, what you are going to excrete is carbon dioxide because oxygen is basically entering into the lungs and then carbon dioxide is coming out, right? And then this is going to be excreted as exhaled air. So we are going to breathe out. That is how you get to remove this carbon dioxide. You also have the kidney. Now, in the kidney, what we have there is that this is where there's going to be urine formation, right? So, what are you removing? If you have got too many salts, you are going to remove them. Urea, remember from the breakdown of amino acids, you also have uric acid, you also have creatinine, you also have, if you have got too much water in the body, you can also remove them through urine. You also have the skin as an organ for excretion. So what do you remove using the skin? You have got excess mineral salts, like when we get to sweat, and also excess quantity of urea, and also excess water. So there you get to use sweat glands. You also have the liver. So in the liver, what do you get to remove? We remove bile pigments. When you get to break down things like hemoglobin, you are going to have like bile. Okay, as we saw from the top here, you have got things like hemoglobin. When you get to break them down in the liver, you now have going to have bile pigments. So how do you get to excrete bile pigments? You excrete them as bile, which leaves the body through feces when a person gets to visit toilet. So we need to get to understand the human urinary system, specifically the removal of urea, excess water, and also some salts. So the human urinary system is made up of the kidney. So the kidney consists of two beam-shaped organs located in the abdominal cavity. So abdominal cavity, that is in the abdomen, like down the chest. All right. So that is the kidney. That is where they are recorded. So there are two of them. So I've got one on the right, one on the left. You also have the ureters. So the ureter is going to be able to connect like the kidney down, as we are going to be able to see. You have got also the bladder. You also have the urethra. So basically, we are able to see better here. So we can see these two organs, this one and this one. These are the ones which are coding as kidneys. So this is going to be left and then this is right. So how do you get to see which one is left, which one is right? So you think of yourself as being this person who is standing here. And so this is going to be the right hand side. This is going to be the left hand side. Okay. So that is going to be it. And then we have got this blood vessel which is taking blood to different parts of the body. That is the aorta. And then we have got this one which is removing blood from the down portion of the body. That is called the inferior vena cava. So a vena cava just takes blood to the heart. Now we're calling it inferior because it's bringing down. If it was bringing blood from the top, like from the head, we would call it superior vena cava. Right? We also have renal artery. So if you get to hear of renal just means going to the kidney. Okay, it has to do with the kidney. So you have got the renal artery, the artery that is going to the kidney, right? Because we know that the aorta itself is an artery because it carries oxygenated blood. So those arteries going to the kidneys, you call them renal arteries. And then the vena cava, this is a vein because it carries deoxygenated blood. And then those uh, veins which are coming from the kidney, you call them renal veins. So I've got left and right. So this tube which is coming from the kidney going to the bladder, that is called the ureter. So we should not confuse it with the urethra, because the urethra comes from the bladder to the outside. That is either to the penis or to the vagina there to be removed. That is the tube where urine gets to pass. Right. So basically, this is it that we have to know about this. So we know that in the kidney, this is where there is reabsorption, and this is where there is actually happening of conversion of substances from the body into those which are going into the bladder. So that is basically a kidney. So this is a kidney. When we get to make it larger, this is how we're going to be able to see a kidney. So what are the parts that we're able to see on a kidney? The outermost part of a kidney, we call it a cortex. Cortex, right? And then we have got this portion which is more the middle part, that is going to be called a medulla. That is called a medulla, right? So that is a medulla. And then another important thing that we can see here is we have got the ureter. Where is the ureter going? It is going to the bladder. Okay. We have got what is called the renal pelvis. So just this connection here of the ureter, that is the renal pelvis. We have got also the renal artery. So these are the arteries which are bringing blood to the kidney. We can see they are connected to the medulla there. Okay. We also have the renal capsule. So a capsule is simply a layer which is outside. Okay. Then I've got the pyramid, which is simply this structure where we have got more the tying of the what of the arteries there. So this is a kidney. So we need to know these parts, especially the medulla, the cortex, the ureter, the renal vein, and the renal artery. So we're going to differentiate the renal vein and the renal artery in that for a vein, let me say for the artery, because a artery we are going to shade it, or if possible we are going to see it red. Then a vein you are going to see it blue or not, because it gets to carry deoxygenated blood. So the kidney is basically made up of two regions. The outer is called the cortex, and then the inner is called the medulla. So the cortex is covered by a protective fibrous capsule. So we have got the thing which is outside, that is the capsule that just protects the cortex, which is the outer layer. So also have the medulla consisting of 8 to 18 conical pyramids. Okay. Now across the cortex, just in the cortex, that is in this outer region, this outermost part of the kidney, we have got what we call nephrons. So nephrons are actually the portions of the kidney which are going to be involved in reabsorbing some substance, because when urine is forming, you might find that a lot of salts have been taken in the urine, and a lot of water has been taken. Now if your body doesn't have enough water, it has to reabsorb that water that before it gets to go into the bladder as urine. So the nephron is what is responsible for that. Where is it located? It is in the cortex, in the outer part. Okay. It is also found in the medulla. So the nephron actually runs from the cortex to the medulla. Or let me say from the medulla to the cortex. All right. So also have collecting ducts, we are going to consider those. So nephrons are the urine producing units. We've already said that these are the ones which are going to be able to produce urine. So the tips of the pyramids empty urine into an area which is called the renal pelvis. So the tips of the pyramid empty urine there. So the renal pelvis, this region that we are able to see, this is where urine is going to be brought when it comes from the pyramids here. Okay. So you have got blood which is going to be entering via the renal artery. Remember, the renal artery carries oxygenated blood, or the renal vein carries deoxygenated blood. Okay, so both of these are connected to the kidney at what is called the hilum. So the hilum is where the renal vein and the renal artery are connected on this part here. All right. So we are going to go now and zoom in using a microscope to be able to see now. So we can see this, what we are able to see here is what we are calling as a nephron. That is what we are calling as a nephron. So you can see that it starts in the cortex and ends up also in the medulla there. So we need to know the structure of a nephron very well. So here is a nephron. We need to know the structure very well, because the structure is very important in the role that the kidney gets to play. Okay, so if we see, let me start with this tube which goes like this. We have got this tube which goes like that, and then it's the one which is turning like this, going down, and then it goes like that up, and then it goes like this, and then it reaches at this point. So I can start with that tube. So this tube is called the collecting duct. This is called the collecting duct. Actually, this is the one which is going to be able to carry the urine to go to the what? To go to the bladder. That's a collecting duct. So when the collecting duct starts to coil, at this point where it gets to start coiling, we call this the distal convoluted tubule. A tubule is simply a tube. Now we are calling it distal. Why distal? Distal just means it is far away. Now it is far away from where? Okay, so it is far away from the beginning where reabsorption is happening. So we have got this portion where this tube is starting. Okay, we have got this portion. So you can see that it goes down like that, and then it comes, and then it gets to form coils here. So that's why we are calling it a distal convoluted. Now here you can say it is also making coils here, but because it is making coils near this point where it is starting, so here we call it proximal. Proximal just means near. So this is called proximal convoluted tubule, and then distal convoluted tubule. So remember, distal just means far from where the reabsorption is happening, and then proximal means near to where the reabsorption is happening. So this tube is going to go down like that. Now this portion where it is long, like where it turns like this is called the loop of Henle. The loop of Henle is where the this tube actually just goes down like that, and then gets to tend to go up again. Okay. Now we also have blood vessels here. Remember, this vessel contains blood, and in the blood we have got water. We also have what? We also have let's say salts. We also have urea there, which is coming from different portions. Okay, like let's say we have got things coming from the lungs. We have got things coming from different parts of the body. So the blood vessel which brings blood to the kidney is called afferent. So because this one is bringing blood, we know that those which bring blood are called arteries, right? So this is going to be called afferent arterial, because it's a division of the artery. Afferent. So when we hear of afferent, we just mean bringing in. Okay, so the one which is taking away this blood, we are going to call it efferent. So we can see that when the afferent comes and passes, so we have got this gamma region which is curved here like this. This one we call it the Bowman's capsule. The Bowman's capsule. So if a blood moves from the efferent, from the Bowman's capsule, this same vein, it moves from the Bowman's capsule, it is going to become efferent because it's coming out. So when it is going in, it's called afferent. When it's coming out, it's called efferent. So you can see that at this point, this same afferent arterial has become, it has coiled like that, and it has now spaces a lot like that. So that is just to get to increase the surface area such that the blood which is coming, a lot of things should be able to diffuse from the blood into the Bowman's capsule. So that is the aim of this behaving like this. Okay. So at this point, when the same afferent arterial makes this kind of shape such that it splits into a lot of portions. So this is now called the glomerulus. So it is actually at the glomerulus where diffusion is going to be happening. Okay, what is diffusion? Is just a movement of substances from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. So let's say in this blood vessel, if we have got a lot of sodium, then sodium is going to move and it goes into the Bowman's capsule. Let's say if we've got too much water, then water is going to move into the Bowman's capsule. So this is where diffusion or filtration is actually happening. So let me say this is where filtration is happening. All right. Where is filtration happening? At the glomerulus going into the Bowman's capsule. So when filtration gets to happen, we can see that this blood vessel, the afferent, when it goes passes into the Bowman's capsule, it is now known as glomerulus, and then it comes out as the efferent, and then it will again branch off, as you are able to see a lot of these passing through, cutting the loops of Henle, a lot of them, and then it now gets back like that. It is no longer an artery but a vein because it is now taking blood back to the heart, and it does now carbon dioxide. Okay, so what is going to be happening is that here on the glomerulus there is filtration that is happening. So something is taken down here, taken down like that. So in this region here, some things which were absorbed have to be reabsorbed into the blood. Let's say if the glomerulus, there was too much filtration of water, meaning that a lot of water went into the Bowman's capsule. So the body lacks water. So at these points where we are able to see these blood vessels, that water will be able to again diffuse into the blood vessels like that. Water will again diffuse into the blood vessels. So there will be another diffusion that is going to be able to happen. Okay, so I've taken time to explain this structure because they can ask us to get to label it. So that's why we need to make sure that we know this structure. Now let's get to explain their functions. So I've got the glomerulus. As you saw, this is simply the capillaries coming from the afferent arterial, between the afferent arterial and efferent arterial. Those capillaries there that gets to supply blood from an afferent arterial. Okay, which branches off from where does the afferent arterial come from? So it comes from the renal artery, that artery which went into the kidney. That is where the afferent arterial comes from. So it's going to drain into an efferent arterial, as we are able to see. So the high pressure, because there is a difference in pressure between the afferent arterial and the efferent arterial. Because of that difference in pressure, there is going to be filtration. Now you need to take note of the things which are filtered on the glomerulus. So water is going to move out of the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule. Urea is also going to be able to move. Salts are able to move. Also, small solutes are able to move. All right. small solutes, let's say glucose, is also going to be able to move from the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule. So this process is known as ultrafiltration. So we need to take note, where does ultrafiltration happen? It happens on the glomerulus. All right. So we also have now what we call the Bowman's capsule. The Bowman's capsule is going to uh, is actually the start of the tubular component of a nephron. That is where it starts. That is why we are saying that first point. So it was something like this, and then we had a convolution. Okay, it started behaving like this, and then it went down, and then came like this, and then started also behaving like this. Okay, and then it went into the collecting duct, which goes into the kidney. Okay, I mean into the blood. So because this is the beginning point, this portion, this convolution, which is that's why we are calling it the proximal, because it is near the beginning of a nephron. So that is the Bowman's capsule. I have not shown blood vessels here because we are going to have the a blood vessel coming here and then making the glomerulus and then coming, and then it to come here, pass through a lot of times like that, because there will be a second filtration that is going to be happening at that point. Okay, so on the Bowman's capsule, that's the start of the component of the nephron. It surrounds the glomerulus in a cup-like structure. So together, the Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus makes up a renal, okay, this component. So when you get to put together the remember the glomerulus is inside the Bowman's capsule. So that is going to make what is called the renal corpuscle. Renal corpuscle. The other term for that is the Maupigyan corpuscle. Okay, so which one are we going to call as the Maupigyan corpuscle? So the entire of this structure, this one here, this one, where we have got the glomerulus and also the Bowman's capsule, that is what we are calling as the renal corpuscle or Maupigyan corpuscle. So I've got the proximal convoluted tubules. This is the that point where the tube starts behaving like this, where it has tens. So it is proximal because it is near the beginning of this capsule. Okay, the Bowman's capsule. So a convoluted tube leading from the Bowman's capsule, which straightens up as it passes into the medulla, leading into the loop of Henle. So meaning that, remember this nephron started in the what? It started in the cortex, that is the outer portion of the kidney. So as you go to the proximal convoluted, the proximal convoluted is going to become straight. This straight part, of course, is what we called the loop of Henle. So the loop of Henle is basically found in the medulla instead of the cortex. Okay. Now, what of the loop of Henle? So the loop of Henle consists of a descending limb, that is just this part which goes down. Okay. So it is a hairpin 10 and an ascending limb. It is going to re-enter the cortex because you are again going up. So you are going to still re-enter the cortex, which is the outer part of the what? The outer part of the kidney. You also have the distal convoluted. So this is a convoluted portion of the nephron leading from the loop of Henle. Just coming from the loop of Henle, you are going to have the distal convoluted. So the collecting duct is a tube into which the distal convoluted. So this distal convoluted, remember, is going to go into the collecting duct, which is now going to take the urine to the what? To the blood. So the collecting duct is a tube into which distal convoluted tubules from several nephrons. So I've got a lot of nephrons. They are going to be able to connect there and empty their filtrate. Their filtrate is simply urine. So it is going to extend deep into the medulla. So this one goes into the medulla, opening up into the renal pelvis. That is where the the kidney actually gets to end at those points. So it is not considered to be part of the nephron. It is actually out of the nephron. This part which gets to carry the urine. Okay. So how is urine formed? So you have got a lot of salt, you have got a lot of nitrogenous waste such as urea, and you have got a lot of water, which is going to be excreted through the kidney via ultrafiltration on the glomerulus. Okay, and then you are going to have another type of filtration which is called selective reabsorption. So on the kidney we have got two types of filtration. We have got ultrafiltration happening at the glomerulus, and then you have got the selective reabsorption, which is going to happen at different parts where you are able to see blood vessels. So ultrafiltration, as you have said, is going to happen at the glomerulus. So the blood that enter the glomerulus through the afferent artery from the renal artery is going to be filtrated. So blood pressure forces water, urea, salts, and other small solids. So glucose and amino acids and vitamins, these are small, so they are able to move from the blood into the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule because they are small. Okay, so this is what is going to happen. So according, they are going to fall into the lumen or the Bowman's capsule. So lumen is just that space of the Bowman's capsule, that space which is like that. That is where they are going to be able to fall. So the high blood pressure, that is called hydrostatic pressure, driving the ultrafiltration in the glomerulus is due to the apparent artery having a larger diameter than the efferent. So when you see the afferent, that blood vessel which comes from this portion bringing blood is actually much bigger than the one which is leaving. The one which is leaving is smaller. The one leaving the glomerulus has got a small diameter. So this one is much larger. The afferent is larger than the efferent. So we need to take note on this because this is an exam question. Okay. So afferent has got a bigger diameter than efferent. So the endothelium or the glomerulus capillary and the basement membrane of the Bowman's capsule that wrap around the capillaries are partially permeable membranes. So when we talk about the endothelium, that is just the inner layer of the glomerulus. So we know the glomerulus is that part, like you have got a blood. It's just a blood vessel, the capillary on the Bowman's capsule. Okay, why is it that things are able to move out of the blood in the glomerulus? That is because it has got it is partially permeable, meaning that there are some spaces where these substances are able to move out from. So the glomerular filtrate passes from the lumen of the Bowman's capsule into the proximal convoluted. So it's going to pass from this space, which is the one we are calling the lumen, into the proximal convoluted here. Okay. So within this tube, most of the mineral salts and all the glucose and amino acids are reabsorbed. So just on the proximal convoluted, you are going to have now another kind of filtration which we call selective reabsorption. So you need glucose in the body, you need amino acids in the body. So these things are going to be reabsorbed on the proximal convoluted, and what will just remain in the nephron is the urea and some water. Of course, some water is also going to be reabsorbed, especially if you have got few water in the body. So reabsorption of water is going to continue also in the loop of Henry. Okay. So water and salts are reabsorbed in the distal convoluted. So even at the end here, after the loop of Henry at this point, in the distal convoluted, you are still going to reabsorb more water and still salt. So remember, in the proximal convoluted, what you are reabsorbing, you are reabsorbing actually almost everything, okay, the mineral salts, but glucose and amino acids is almost everything is reabsorbed just at this point.